see. It's here now. What's going on here? Okay. Just waiting for some folks to jump on. Just waiting for some people to get in on the conversation. I'll make sure that I can be heard. Okay. Here we want to I just want to discuss something that took place about a month ago, almost a month ago, that didn't get a lot of attention and a lot of press. Even though it was in the newspaper per se, it didn't get as much exposure as a lot of other events that have taken place received. So I want to just talk about it briefly today. I need you guys to be quiet because I'm live streaming, okay? Just be quiet, please. Don't say anything. All right. Now that we got it quiet in here, I want to discuss this particular case tonight, and it is the case of Emmitt Till. You guys remember, I'm sure all of you remember the story from 1955 when that young man was falsely accused. When I say young man, I mean Emmitt Till. He was falsely accused of groping a white woman in a store in Mississippi, and he was also accused of making some very graphic remarks, which was untrue. Turned out later on that the lady lied about the entire encounter, which she knew from the very beginning. She told her husband this story. Her husband believed her, of course, and her husband decided that he, along with an accomplice, would seek out Emmitt Till, take him to a barn shed in town. They took him to a barn. They beat him up severely, pretty much tortured the young man, and then, as if that wasn't enough, they took it a step further, tying a 70-pound cotton mill fan to his neck and then tossing him in the Mississippi River. You guys remember they found the body sometime later, on the river, or in the river, with that fan attached to his neck, which kept him underground. You guys remember the story, how they mutilated his body and they pretty much made him unrecognizable. And even though his mother wanted his appearance at the time was grotesque, but his mother wanted the world to see what they did to him, because she wanted the state of Mississippi to be held accountable for what they allowed, her son to have to go through. As you know, the jury was made up of white men when they finally had the court case. And then let's be honest, we knew, I should say they knew, because I wasn't even born yet, but they knew from the get-go, when the case started, that there were going to be games played, and they were going to find a way to let them off, because you were dealing with a system where the sheriff was white supremacist, the officers involved were white supremacists, the judge, the jury, the news reporters, everybody was white supremacist. All these folks were white, pro-white. So in their eyes, being a black person in Mississippi and during those days, you were guilty of a crime from the get-go. Whatever the crime was, even if it was not true, even if you didn't commit it, if a white person said you did it, you did it, and you were punished for it, even if you didn't do it. You were guilty, and there was no proving you innocent, because in that day and age, blacks had no rights. Color of people, black and brown people, had absolutely no rights, no civil rights, no anything. So back in those days, if they wanted to get rid of you, all they had to do was accuse you of something. And the death penalty, you could get the death penalty, and when I say the death penalty, I'm not talking about in a court of law. I'm talking about in the community. You could be put to death just by saying hello to a white woman. As a black person in Mississippi or Alabama, anywhere in that Bible Belt, if you so much as winked at a white woman, you could be put to death for that. So when I don't even like to call their names. When the owner's wife of that supermarket, that convenience store, told her husband that he groped her, touched her, and made some sort of remarks to her, her husband, all he saw in his eyes was red, and said, "Oh, we have another black person that we have to, get rid of." And that was their purpose and their intent. It wasn't until 2008 that the lady who lied and said that he, accosted her and made those comments to her, actually came forward and said that she lied. As a matter of fact, the two gentlemen who killed him, after the trial and after they were acquitted of the murder, they actually sat down with a news reporter, and the news reporter paid them $4,000, and they basically confessed to killing him. But because of the double jeopardy rule that's in place, they could not legally be tried a second time. So they literally went on the news. They were paid $4,000, and they went on the news and they talked about how they murdered Emmitt Till, and they got paid for it. And because of the double jeopardy rule, they were not allowed, or they could not legally be tried a second time. Now you skip 66 years later, almost 67 years, but it's right now 66 years later. We are still dealing with Emmitt Till scenarios, where young black men are being assassinated, being killed by the hands of white supremacists, and the first thing they'll try to say is more black people have killed each other than white people have killed them, which is relatively untrue, because even with all of the murders you may see in the black community, let's talk about the white community and what they've done to us for centuries, and the oppression that they put us through, and how many people they've killed of our ethnic background that never made it to the news, that never made it to any statistic, that never made it on the news. You know what I'm saying? How many people have they killed before there were cameras, before there were phones, before there was technology? And in our case, as black and brown people, before there was even civil rights, how many countless black and brown people have they killed, and mutilated before it was ever made public, or before it ever became a piece of the news? So when we travel back, this is why they don't like when we discuss critical race theory, because critical race theory forces them and all of us to take that step back and to look on what happened during those times and during those decades. And it forces America to have to face the reality of what they did back in those days and those times. To tell us that we should just forget about it is not true. We shouldn't. We need to be very clear about where we came from and what we were put through. Don't let anyone ever tell you, especially white people, don't let them tell you to forget what happened in the past. No, listen, understanding what we went through and what we came through is how we prepare ourselves for what we need to get through in the future. Simply saying, let's just forget about what was done. No, no, no. It's important you understand that America has a very dark history. So when you hear ridiculous statements like "Make America Great Again," I mean, it's just, that is such a ridiculous statement. Because in my opinion, as a black man, my question is, when was America ever great? You look at, I'm talking about for us. For white people, it's probably been great from day one. But I'm talking about for us. When was there a period when America was great in terms of having equality and equity and fair justice under the law, impartial justice system that judges people not based on the color of their skin, but what actually took place? When have we ever had that fair and equitable treatment under the law? We haven't. And even to this very day, I don't know if you guys have noticed in the past month, maybe month and a half, maybe even 2 months, there have been at least 3 stories that hit the news of black men who have been in jail for 30 years. I think one guy was in jail for 35 years. Another gentleman was in jail for maybe 20 something years, 25 years. I got to get all their stories. But in the last 2 to 3 years, stories have come out about black men who were incarcerated and have been incarcerated since the 80s, and it finally came out that they were innocent. And this has been in the news, relatively new, but it just goes to show you. It just goes to show you the fallacy of these laws and how they can manipulate the interpretation of these laws for their own ends. And it almost seems like, as my grandfather used to say, when you're white, you're right. When you're black, get back. That's usually what it seems to be true. I'm not, I'm not here just, I'm on a soapbox. I'm here because, this is serious. And then we have, you fast forward 66 years, and you have the situation with Thelonious McKnight Jr. And you have what took place with him, which was pretty much a modern day lynching. If you really want to look at it in retrospect, when you think about what happened to that young man, and you look at today and look at 66 years ago, that was a modern day lynching. They killed that young man, and unless the justice system in this city and in this state does what it's supposed to do and tries this case correctly, those officers might walk for killing that young man. I spoke to somebody today who reviewed that video almost 50 times. And they watched that video and they saw, in looking at the video, they were able to see how they sped up, how they reached and grabbed him and took him around back. And somebody even saw how they moved his body around. Because his body, when they originally shot and killed him, was in a different position later on at the scene, where they flipped him over and they moved him close to the door. And somebody who was analyzing that video and watching that video over and over and over again, they began to pinpoint different things in the video that it's hard to see in the video, like the ballistics and even the sounds of the guns. When you look at, when you analyze it, and you look at that video and you study it very hard, you do not hear, guns coming from 2 different directions. You only hear them coming from one direction. So if he was shooting at them, you would have been able to hear the ricochet of the gun coming from one direction and then the sound of the returning fire. But you only heard one set of gunfire. You didn't hear, it wasn't coming from both angles. It was only coming from one. So he was basically lynched. Thelonious McKnight Jr. was lynched. Okay, that's what happened. He was lynched. And we need to make sure that story stays out there. And let me tell you, the family is fighting, and the family wants to keep this story alive. They want us to keep fighting for this young man until we get justice for him. But I want to let you know, we're dealing with a justice system that does not have the best interest of African Americans in mind. And this is one of the reasons why I opted to get into a law program. I could have went to, you know, theological seminary to further my ministry. I could have went to culinary school to get another degree in culinary arts, open a restaurant. I could have went into those other areas. Could have went into being a therapist or counselor and what have you. But I wanted to get into law because that's going to allow me to understand the process and the way things work, because you can't fix something until you know how it's operating. When you have an understanding of how it's operating and you're able to get in there and see how it's operating from the inside, and then weigh that against the truth about how it should be operated, that is the only time you can actually get in there and fix it so that it could work correctly for the people. Because right now it's not working correctly for the people. That's the story. So that's the real reason why I'm getting involved. But I'm saying this today because I was sitting down this morning, getting ready for service, and I began to think about that story about Emmitt Till. And I went and got on my phone, went to Google to check it out to see exactly what happened with that case. And that's when I found out, December 13th, that the Justice Department pretty much canceled that case and said there's nothing else we can do. We were unable to secure or prove that the testimony from the person who said they lied about it was indeed a lie. So once that took place, they felt like there was nothing else that they could possibly do, and they canceled the case, dismissed the case, and nobody is facing justice for what happened to Emmitt Till. And that is a very sad day, and a sad reality for African Americans, just to show you how twisted and how rigged the justice system has been and is to this very day. How we fight back is becoming a part of that, to get in there and to change it from the inside out. And make no mistake, it can be changed from the inside out if you have the right people who are in there getting it done. I know I pursued this degree a little later in life, but I just feel like the timing is right. I've been through a lot. In my 40 years of life, I've been through a lot. I've been to a lot. And I just feel like this is the right time to get involved on that level. It's grueling. I'm not going to lie to you. The classes are grueling. The workload is grueling. There's nothing easy about what I'm doing. Every class requires no less than 8 or 9 hours to complete. My week is tied up ridiculously with studying and getting ready, to take midterms and finals and, case laws. And I mean, there's so much that I'm doing and I'm having to finish and complete. But at the end of the day, it's allowing my knowledge of how things are supposed to work to be, amplified. And that's what's happening right now. I'm gaining a knowledge and an understanding about the legal process that, I thought I knew, but then found out later on that I really didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we are right now. But the Emmitt Till case, I think that it's a shame that they closed that case out. I think they should have, for the sake of the young man, I think that they should have kept that case open, even if it's just to clear that young man's name. But they didn't even clear his name. They just closed the case out. And I think that's wrong. I think that they need to open that case and they need to clear that young man's name and make it plain that he did not whistle at that lady. He did not make those remarks, and clear his name. That's what I really believe. That's what I believe. That's what I believe should take place and what should happen. You're more than welcome to chime in and comment and let me know how you feel. But yeah, I wanted to get on here because I wanted to share that. I was reading up on it, and it upset me this morning. It brought me to tears. I'm gonna be honest with you, because it's like this family has been fighting for 66 years. The mother has passed away a couple of years ago, but the family has been fighting for 66 years, over 6 decades, to get justice for this young man. And the Justice Department just said, let's just close it. It's not right. It's not right. It just shows you how messed up that system was. The people who were in power back then were able to manipulate the evidence so good that the present day Justice Department was unable to do anything with it, because the people who were in charge and who were controlling the justice system back then were able to manipulate the evidence and manipulate the information, so much so that the Justice Department that's there now is unable to do anything. And that's terrible. Okay. That's very bad. So, going forward, because I know some people are asking about going forward, what are we going to do in terms of Thelonious McKnight? You know, we're working in coordination with the family, and when the family gives us direction to go forward, I'll definitely let you guys know what the next steps are. You know, right now, the family is grieving, and let's respect that. Let's respect that. Let's respect that. Let's give them their time. But they made it very clear last night that the minute, you know, they've had their time of mourning, that they're going to hit the streets, they're going to make noise, and we are just preparing a plan going forward for how we're going to address this issue, and of course the issue with Mr. Lowry. We're gonna address all of those issues because it has to be done. It has to be done. So that's all I wanted to say on this Sunday night. I wanted to bring up the Emmitt Till case, and I wanted to also bring up how, to this very day, we're still dealing with situations that resemble what Emmitt Till went through in 1955. And I know the family right now doesn't have closure because the Justice Department failed to prosecute the case. But I just pray that somehow in all of this, that they find some sort of peace of mind. You know, I know it's harder, it's easier said than done, but I'm praying. That's all I can do is right now is pray that they'll receive some sort of solace in what they've been through and what they've had to endure for the last 6 plus decades with this particular case. You know, just know that we're not going to quit. We're not going to give up. You know, we're not going to walk away. We're in this for the long haul, and if you're dealing with any type of situation that you need someone to represent you as your advocate, I'm not an attorney yet. I'm on my way, taking my classes, doing what I have to do. But once I'm done and I'm an attorney, you can retain me. But for now, I can still be your advocate. So allow me to do that and work on your behalf so we can get justice for you as well. A lot of the cases I don't know about unless they're brought to me. And once they're brought to me, then I can begin to act on it and get the word out and start fighting for you. All right. So with that, I'm going to end this live. And you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. And there's a busy week ahead. But, you know, we're going to get through it. I'll put it like that. We're going to get through it. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening.